Moving to a new country is very exciting, but let's be real. There's always some stuff that you wish someone would have told you before you made the move. Paraguay is an amazing place to live and to be, but after spending about 6 months here, there are some things that I wish I knew before coming here. So in this video, I'm gonna share 7 things that I wish someone would have told me before coming to Paraguay so that you can avoid the same mistakes and make this a smoother transition. Hey guys, my name's Alex. I've been living in Paraguay for the past 6 months while building my ideal life in Latin America. And on this channel, I share everything I've learned about moving abroad and living stress-free in Latin America. So if that sounds like your thing, be sure to subscribe. Now let's get into it. All right, so let's dive right in. The first thing that I wish I knew was that Paraguay uses Type C outlets. All right, this is also true for Argentina. This is also true for Peru. So what you're gonna wanna do is bring a universal adapter, and I'll share a video of what that looks like. You can find this on Amazon, but trust me, you'll thank me later. So Type C outlets are very different from what you'll find as far as plugins in the US and Canada and most other countries in the West. So if you're bringing a laptop, which I'm sure most of you are, or any electronics really, then you'll definitely want to bring a universal adapter, or you're going to be struggling or scrambling to find one once you land in the country. Now, another thing that I realized is that Paraguay uses voltage 220. So what happened to me was I like to bring a noisemaker when I sleep. It's basically plays brown noise. And when I plugged it in, as soon as I plugged it in, I saw sparks go off. Right, so obviously the voltage wasn't enough for that particular machine, and it ended up burning. And I couldn't use it anymore. So you want to make sure whatever you're bringing with you isn't higher voltage than that. It's the only thing that I brought where I plugged it in and started seeing sparks. So more than likely you'll be good, but sometimes you might bring something with you that might burn. Now, if you're renting Airbnb, then obviously most times you're gonna get a coffee maker, you're gonna get a blender. So you won't have to worry about bringing this stuff. It already have the right outlet for it. But at the same time, sometimes it won't. So you want to have these universal adapters, and you also want a converter, which I'll show you what that looks like as well. So I did learn the hard way that I couldn't bring my laptop my first day here. So what you want to do is save yourself the hassle, pack a couple adapters before your trip, and you're good to go. The second thing I wish I knew before coming to Paraguay is, although it is much more affordable than the US and most other Latin American countries, it might not be as cheap as you think. Okay. And I'm speaking for someone who wants to live in the best neighborhood, who wants to basically live a high-end lifestyle in this country. You could end up spending more than what you planned on. So yes, Paraguay is one of the cheapest places to live in Latin America, but don't expect everything to be super cheap, right? If you want Western comforts, if you want to buy certain liquors, if you want to buy certain electronics, if you want to live in a high-end apartment, if you want the best brands, you will pay a premium for those things. An example is I ended up losing my Kindle reader on a flight. I left it on the plane like a dummy from Buenos Aires coming to Asunción, Paraguay. And I was looking all over the place for a new Kindle because reading is something that I enjoy doing. And the best price that I could find was $200 for, I think, 16 gigabyte Kindles. This is something I could normally get for under $100 in the US. So it was kind of frustrating to know that I had to pay twice as much for the same electronic that I could get in the States. But I sucked it up. I did it. Just realize if you're looking for certain electronics, certain things, it will cost more here in Paraguay. Now, with that said, local food and housing are very affordable. As I mentioned, imported stuff can be expensive. So if you're renting in a place like Villa Mora, Carmelitas, I did another video on this that I'll share here. But you will be spending more money here than living in other local areas or more budget travel areas, which I also shared in another video. All right, so if you really want to save money in Paraguay, then be sure to shop at local markets. Places like Super Safes, like Biggie are going to be your most affordable options. And you definitely want to have new electronics before you get here. So with that said, you will save a lot more money living in Paraguay. As I mentioned, if you want to live a luxury lifestyle here, you can do so for about $2,500 a month. But just keep in mind, there are certain purchases that will cost more here than what you're used to. The third thing I wish I knew before coming here is that the pace of life is very slow, and that includes bureaucracy. So if you're coming from the US or Europe, then you're going to realize things are going to be different, right? I'm from Boston, where everything is pretty quick. We're in, we're out, right? We're always in a rush. That's not true here. People take their time and things don't happen as fast. For instance, if you're getting a visa, which I'm currently going through the process of getting residency, if you want to open a bank account, if you want to set up utilities, then you can expect delays. Now, with that said, if you do know someone here, if you do have a connection or a higher up, then they could expedite the process for you. But for most of you, it's going to take longer than maybe what you thought. Another example are businesses or even nightclubs. You never know when they might be open, right? Delirio is a nightclub where some of my friends like to go. They basically play reggaeton all night. You can be there until 4 or 5 a.m., I believe. I'm not even sure. They might even be 24 hours. But this is the place that I've been to, right, with friends, with girls. And on a particular Friday night, they ended up just being closed randomly, right? And the reason why, after I found out, was because there was a concert going on in another city called San Bernardino. So the entire city, not the entire city, but a lot of people in the city basically left to go to this concert, and it left certain businesses and certain nightclubs closed for that entire weekend. Another example is in grocery lines, you can expect to wait, right? It's going to be a lot longer than you would going to a grocery store in the States. So just be patient, bring cash, it'll be quicker. So another example would be at restaurants or even lunch spots, right? You can expect to wait more than you can expect to wait. Right. So if you're someone who has a remote business, or maybe you're in remote sales like myself, maybe you have a call coming up within the hour, you might want to plan that accordingly as far as when you want to grab lunch, or maybe just go to a grocery store where they'll make you a lunch a lot quicker, like a Super Safes, versus going to like a restaurant, which is probably going to take 45 minutes just to get your food. And make sure also when you ask for the bill, you want to do it before you end your meal, right? Assuming you're in a rush, all right? These are just things to keep in mind. Now, I want to end this point here with, although it can be frustrating if you're coming from a fast-paced lifestyle, someone like myself who's from Boston, but now I do actually appreciate it because Paraguay forces you to slow down. It forces you to enjoy life. It forces you to savor the moment. It forces you to be more tranquilo, more calm, right? And not always be in a rush. So I think that's a positive if you're coming from a faster paced Western lifestyle. Okay, so number 4, as far as things I wish I knew, is that Spanish is not really optional here. I'd say Spanish, you need to know at least basic Spanish to enjoy your time here. Because only about 10% of the population speaks English. Should I put here English? So if you're going on dates with new women, if you're meeting locals, if you're even meeting expats, Spanish is going to go a long way for you here. Now, with that said, I do have some friends here who speak very, very limited Spanish, and they do get by, right? But their experience is definitely limited for sure, right? So I'd say if you come into a place like Paraguay, brush up on your English, at least know the basics, right? So you don't have to maybe depend on someone, or so maybe that, like if you got to go to the hospital or something, you don't have to depend on someone. Or if you're on a double date, like you don't want to be that guy who maybe the 3 people who speak Spanish are doing all the talking, and then you're the 4th guy and you don't speak that good of Spanish, where you don't even know what's going on, right? That's kind of an awkward situation to be in. A lot of guys pull it off, but I'm just saying it's best to know some Spanish here for sure. So unlike tourist heavy cities like Mexico City or Bogota or Cartagena or even Lima, Peru, English here, as I mentioned, I wouldn't say it's non-existent, but about 10% of the population speaks it. So if you don't speak it, you're going to struggle with things like ordering food at restaurants, negotiating rents, right? I do have some ideas or tips for you there. Or dating some quality women here, right? Because they're going to expect you to know Spanish, because a lot of the expat community here that you'll meet are more seasoned travelers, and they do speak pretty good Spanish. Another note, many people here speak the native language of Guarani. So bonus points if you learn some words here with that. But Spanish here is going to be essential, right? You don't necessarily have to speak Guarani because everyone does speak Spanish here. All right, some other tips. Google Translate, of course, is going to help, but it won't be sufficient for serious conversations or for social interactions, or for group interactions. As I mentioned, like if you're going on a double date with someone, I had a friend, we went on a double date. He brought his girl, I brought my girl. And it just turned out to where even when it came to ordering food, like I had to help him out when it came to ordering food. So it wasn't an ideal look, right, in my opinion. Or when we were just having some conversation, like we had to fill him in a little bit on what we were talking about. So I'm not saying you can't like get by or do well here, but just these are the things that are going to come up if you don't speak good enough Spanish. So I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but my advice, take some basic Spanish lessons before moving or spending a lot of time here in Paraguay. Trust me, it's going to make your life a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable. Number 5 is that the weather here can be brutal, specifically in the summertime. Now, I knew that Paraguay was warm, and I also knew that it was going to be hot in the summertime because I heard it from a lot of expat friends, specifically in December, January, and February. Right now, as you can see here, we're in February 3rd, if you look top right. And although I wasn't fully prepared with how intense the weather can get, because it does get pretty hot, but I wasn't fully prepared for how hot it can get. Right, we're talking temperatures of over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, over even 40 degrees Celsius with high humidity. Now, luckily, I am someone who does like the heat. I come from Boston, which is very cold. My family is Latino, right? My dad's from Puerto Rico, my mom's from Guatemala. These are hot climates, so I feel like my body can adapt to that type of weather. And luckily, since I work from home, like when it gets really hot here, I'm inside. I'm in AC, right? And during the mornings when I like to get my iced coffee, or at night when I like to go for a stroll or go out, then that's when it does get a little cooler. So it's just during that midday heat when the sun's out, where it's at its hottest, where it can get brutal. You're outside, you're sweating, right? Just be prepared for that if you're here during the summer months. So some tips here: whatever apartment you get, air conditioning is a must, especially if you're coming during the summertime. So make sure your apartment has it. I haven't found any apartments that don't have it, so you should be fine. Winters here, which is between June, July, and August, are pretty mild. Some nights can get pretty cold. I got here in August towards the end of winter. And what I was told is most buildings don't have heating. Mine does. So I did use the heat some days, not most days, but just keep in mind it can get cold some nights. And a quick story is I heard a story from a friend of mine who lives here full time. His first summer here, just to prepare you, his first summer here, he actually fainted while walking on the street because he wasn't getting enough water. He was dehydrated. So if you're here during the summertime, make sure you're hydrated. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water. It hasn't happened to me where I felt dizzy or anything like that. And also, like I said, I think I'm more compatible with the heat. But if you're someone who really doesn't like the heat, then make sure you stay hydrated. You want to avoid fainting. So last tip I'll share: if you're moving here, if you're here during the summertime, prepare for it. You don't necessarily need to invest in a good fan because your apartment should have AC, but in case it doesn't, make sure you invest in that, and always carry water with you. The next thing is that Paraguay is one of the safest countries in Latin America. I'd say it is the safest from all the countries I've been to, which is about 9, I think 12 different cities. But you still need to have common sense here. Right, you must understand you're still in Latin America. You're still in technically a third world country. So Paraguay does get overlooked when people talk about Latin America, and that's actually a good thing. I prefer it that way. I don't like to live in touristy areas. As I mentioned, it is one of the safest countries in the region, but like anywhere else, there are still things you want to watch out for. So for instance, you want to avoid certain areas at night, such as in the centro. If you check out one of my previous videos, which I'll probably share the link, I shared which neighborhoods are going to be the safest. I shared which ones might be shady. Basically, anything outside those areas that I mentioned might get a little sketchy at night. So in those areas, you want to make sure you don't have expensive jewelry. Make sure hopefully, you're not in a street where there's no one there. You're by yourself, right? You want to avoid sketchy areas like that. Now, in Paraguay, there is no major cartel violence like in Mexico. Parts of Colombia, it's more like petty theft. It's more people seeing if you have a watch, maybe you have a gold necklace, and there are a lot of robberies that happen there. Paraguay, I haven't heard any of my expat friends getting robbed, such as people in Colombia. It's pretty common. But again, you still want to avoid that at all costs, right? It's possible, but it's just less likely in other countries such as Mexico and Colombia, in my opinion. And as always, as I mentioned, petty theft can happen. So make sure you don't act flashy here. In Colombia, they have a saying, don't no dar papaya, right? Again, just avoid looking flashy. Try to blend in as much as you can, and you'll be fine. But yeah, bottom line, I mean, if you stay in the good neighborhoods that I mentioned, if you use Uber at night instead of walking in areas where it's very lonely, you might be only one, or if you're with a group, you'll be fine. But use Ubers as much as you can at night, and don't act like a tourist who doesn't know what they're doing. You'll be just fine here living in Asuncion. All right, and lastly, number 7, the dating pool can feel small. especially on dating apps. So if you're relying solely on dating apps like Tinder or Bumble, then you're going to notice that the pool is going to feel small. Why is that? So I might share some group messages here, but I'm part of a small expat group. We're in our 20s and 30s. Maybe some of us are in our early 40s. Single guys, businesses or remote workers, right? Salespeople, things like that, where we earn income from anywhere in the world. And the number of times that we've gone on dates with some of the same girls from Tinder and Bumble is pretty comical. There was a girl who I set up a date with on Tinder and put it in the group chat. Maybe there's about 15, 20 of us, and maybe there's about 7 of us in Asuncion right now, specifically. And right away, there were 2 people who not only matched with her, one of them already went on a date with her. So if you're on the dating apps, a lot of these girls are dating other guys similar to you. So there's been a couple instances where I've been on a date with someone and I post their photo into the group chat, and already 2 of my friends have already met with this girl, either in the past or maybe they're actively talking with her. So dating apps, and I'm not saying this is for every girl, but obviously some, there are a percentage who do. A lot of these girls are basically dating a lot of foreigners. And if you're friends with people, then there's a good chance that you guys might be Eskimo bros, right? And if you don't know what that means, look it up. So what I recommend, Instagram is going to be huge here for meeting women. Many of these Instagram girls you won't find on dating apps. Also, cold approach works very well here. If you're someone who doesn't have a really good Instagram or you don't like being on the app. So if I could do it again, I would spend less time on the apps. I would spend more time building a social circle, maybe approaching girls in gyms, cafes, having a network here. These are all great places to meet people naturally, because a certain percentage will have met with some people that you know here. So that's it for today's video, guys. Hopefully that gave you a good idea as far as what to watch out for and what to prepare for before coming to Paraguay. If you found this video valuable, then be sure to give it a like. And if you want to watch more content like this specific to Latin America, then be sure to subscribe and look out for the next video.